NBA reporting is just hilarious. So get this. Today we got a report from Jake Fisher that said the Cavaliers are showing willingness to keep their core together. And then the actual quote, right, in quotation marks here, he says, the Cavs don't appear to be very motivated to listen to trade inquiries for any member of their core four. Now, the reason this is hilarious is because this means nothing. You're saying, oh, the Cavs don't want to trade their best players? No. Shocker. Absolute shocker. You mean to tell me that they're not motivated to trade Donovan Mitchell? No way. Maybe it's because Donovan Mitchell is not even allowed to sign his extension yet. So that's kind of what I want to talk about today. Listen, we've done a lot on this channel. We talked about, I had my draft series. We talked some Jimmy Butler. I've read some Bleacher Report articles to talk about the entire NBA, but I wanted to catch up on Donovan Mitchell with you guys because I do think it's pretty relevant. Now, I'm not trying to spam the Spider videos like a lot of other channels are, or like we did last year with Damian Lillard, but there was obviously a lot of news last year. You know what I mean? So I wanted to come today and talk about this because I actually am working on some really other cool videos coming up. I have a 3-part series coming up on how to fix the Miami Heat's size issue. We're going to be doing some more draft prospect analysis. I got Dalton Connect coming up next and a few more guys. So I do want to say, if there's any draft prospects you're interested in that I haven't talked about yet, leave a comment down below and maybe I'll do a little video on how they could fit in with the Miami Heat. But anyways, this report, like a lot of the reporting we see, is stupid and they all conflict each other. It seems like every other day you get a report that opposes the report that you got the previous day. Because it was just a couple days ago, we got the report that said the Cavaliers would definitely trade Donovan Mitchell if he didn't sign an extension. It says they have zero intention of opening the 24-25 season with Mitchell heading into his free agency year, which that to me does make sense because, like, if Mitchell doesn't sign his extension, that means that he likely doesn't want to stay there, right? Unless you somehow win a championship or something like that, which is at this point unrealistic. So obviously Donovan Mitchell would walk in the next offseason. So you want to trade him now because he has the most value. Now, let's say they bring him into the trade deadline and then he demands a trade. He will still have value, just not as much because any team that's acquiring him is running the risk of him leaving after half a season. So obviously if they trade him now, maybe, you know, Mitchell has a preferred destination of the Knicks, the Nets, and the Miami Heat. But maybe a team like, I don't know, the Orlando Magic want to get involved, send some of their young pieces and picks to get a nice scoring guard. Maybe they do it now because they get an off season. They get to work with Donovan Mitchell. He gets to get accustomed to their players. He gets to practice. And then he gets, you know, they convince him. They have more time to convince him to stay. Then a whole year goes by and then they run the risk of keeping him or losing him. But the point is, if they have a whole year to do it, they're much more likely to be able to convince Donovan Mitchell to stay than if they got him at the trade deadline and had a few months where they had to rush him into the system as you're trying to, you know, make a playoff push. It's just the trade value is a lot less. So obviously, if Mitchell doesn't sign his extension, then the Cavs would definitely trade him this offseason, or at least they should. That would be the smart thing to do. Now, when is this all going to come about? Well, the rules are a little confusing. I read through several times the NBA rules on free agency, and I believe that after the NBA Finals ends, which doesn't start for like a whole week now, I do believe that teams are allowed to start negotiating with their own free agents or guys with player options or extensions and that sort of thing. But I don't think anyone can actually sign until July 6th. So things won't be official, you know, until the first week in July. But I do think it'll just be in a couple weeks when we find out if he's going to sign that extension or not. That's obviously a big deal. Same goes for Jimmy Butler, because that's been another big topic of conversation, whether he gets his money or doesn't. I do think Jimmy ultimately does get his money because I don't think the organization wants to make the same mistake. You can argue whether it was a mistake letting D Wade walk, but I do think they give him his money because they understand that Jimmy literally took them from the hell years of Luke Babbitt and Willie Reed and Deion Waiters and those guys. And I think they keep Jimmy and say, hey, we know you got at least 2 more years left in you. Just promise that you try hard, I guess. I know that's annoying to say, and people are going to say, why give Jimmy his money if he doesn't try hard all the time? Very, very logical point. I can't argue with that. But I do think that whether it's an incentive-based contract or something like that, that they do give Jimmy his money, but they're going to at least have a real talk about what they need out of him. And I think Jimmy's the type of guy that's going to say, hey, whether you give me my money or not, I'm going to go out there on the court and prove to you that I earned it, that I deserve it. I think he's that type of player, and I don't doubt that he cares about winning a championship, and he sees that the approach that he took last year did not work because he ended up getting hurt anyways, and the team had no chance in the first round series without him because they were playing the number 1 seed. But anyways, all this reporting stuff is stupid, right? Because even with regards to Jimmy Butler, you had a few days ago, it said the Sixers are already prepared to offer Jimmy Butler a max deal if he got traded there. Well, no kidding, obviously. Because the only reason the Heat would trade Jimmy is because if they couldn't agree to a max contract extension, which means that any team Jimmy is willing to go to must have already agreed to tell him, a wink, wink under the table, however you want to do it. They must have already agreed that they would give him the max extension. Otherwise, Jimmy Butler would never go there, because all of these talks happen. These conversations are real things that happen before a guy does get moved to another team. So with this Donovan Mitchell report today, I kind of just wanted to come on in this video to tell Heat fans that don't freak out after you saw this report today. I don't think most are, because we've been through this last year with Damian Lillard and even years before that with KD and LaMarcus Aldridge in free agency, right? So Heat fans we're seasoned vets at this point in navigating through the BS of rumors, right? We can even go back with a couple weeks ago, Kobe Altman, the GM of the Cavaliers, was asking about if Donovan Mitchell would stay. And he said, Donovan's words, not mine, Donovan is very happy here. Well, no kidding. I mean, Kobe Altman is the GM of the Cavs. He's essentially Donovan Mitchell's boss. If any of you guys were having a conversation with your boss at work and your boss says, hey, are you happy here? Do you like me? Do you like this company? What are you going to do? You going to tell him no? You going to sit there and look at your boss's face and say, no, I hate it here. I want out. No. Nobody in their right mind is going to sit there in a job talking to their boss saying that information. It's just not going to happen. In the NBA, when guys request trades, they do it through their agent. When they do contract negotiations, they do it through their agents. It's never the player talking directly with their GM saying what they want to do. So keep that in mind when Kobe Altman is out there saying, yeah, Donovan told me he's happy here. Because in that same postseason presser, Kobe Altman also said, yeah, Donovan's had some of his best years here, personally, which is true. And then he also said, we've had some success here as a team. Success? You got your ass kicked in the first round last year and then damn near lost to the Orlando Magic, whose entire starting lineup is like less than 22 years old. It took you 7 games to just barely beat the Magic, and then you got your ass kicked by the Boston Celtics. And yes, obviously they won a game and Donovan Mitchell was hurt for the last few, but still, that was not a very competitive series. So don't take what Kobe Altman said for his word either. Another guy that was saying Mitchell was happy with the Cavs was Adrian Wojnarowski, one of the biggest snakes in the NBA. I call him the ultimate puppet. I had a brilliant video I dropped a year ago explaining sort of a timeline of all the time Woj did some shady stuff as a mouthpiece for other executives. So make sure y'all check that out for more insight. I don't remember all the details, but there was a lot. It was very insightful. But there was even a time where he was the president of the Pistons, it was Joe Dumars at the time, the president of the GM, got fined for leaking so much information to Wojnarowski. And the reason that he did it is because Woj was like, they had a wink-wink deal where while the Pistons were very bad, Woj would never talk trash about them publicly. In fact, he would do the opposite. He would hype them up nonstop. So in return, Dumars was giving him information that, was true or wasn't true. It was a whole ordeal. Even the NBA did a sting operation to find out who the rat was. And the rat was Adrian Wojnarowski and Joe Dumars. It was a whole thing. Saw the same thing last year with Joe Cronin. Every single report that came out from Wojnarowski was positive in terms of Joe Cronin. When all these other reporters, Shams Charania, Chris Haynes, who is literally Damian Lillard's boy, conflicted every report you heard from Shams, and that's because Shams is a mouthpiece of not Shams. That's because Woj is the mouthpiece of all the executives in the league, except for the Miami Heat, apparently. That's why he don't like the Miami Heat, because he can't get no information out of us. That's even in the video that I was talking about that I made about Woj last year. Woj used to be very critical of LeBron back when he was a writer, and it came out that Woj hated LeBron because he had no sources inside LeBron's camp. And with the type of ego that Adrian Wojnarowski has, when he doesn't have no sources to get out his little Woj bombs, he hates you. He takes it personal, and he doesn't like you because of it. So I don't care if Woj is out there saying that Donovan Mitchell's happy in Cleveland, because he knows nothing about nothing and is simply in the media to push the agendas of NBA executives. So that's my little spiel on Wojnarowski. I also want to talk about the Cavs, how they currently don't even have a head coach. If you're trying to get a guy to stay, and Donovan Mitchell, who wants to win a championship, doing that with a rookie head coach with no experience is going to be kind of tough. Now, I know you've had some rookie head coaches win, like Steve Kerr and stuff, but whoever the Cavs coach was, Tyronn Lue at the time. But those teams were already built to win championships. Those teams were getting close. It's not the Cavs who just barely got out of the first round this season. You know what I mean? And the candidates we've heard about so far for the Cavs is Kenny Atkinson, who was only a head coach for 4 years in Brooklyn, coached 4 terrible teams. He did coach that one Nets team that was like 2 games above 500, but they let his ass go. Brought in KD, Kyrie, and all that stuff. Some of the other names they're looking at is Johnny O'Bryant, who's currently an assistant, or not Johnny O'Bryant. That was a former NBA player. Johnny Bryant is an assistant coach on the Knicks coaching staff, and he was also an assistant on the Jazz roster when Mitchell was there. So maybe that's actually a guy that entices Mitchell to want to stay, because reports came out saying Mitchell was very close with Johnny Bryant. And the other name we heard today is Chris Quinn. Like, he'd assistant coach Chris Quinn. Man, Spider, if you want to be coached by Chris Quinn, we got Chris Quinn at home. You got him, and you got the greatest coach in the NBA and Eric Spoelstra. So how about that? Just come to Miami then, if that's the case, But I do want to say, though, I hope, one of those two guys get the job instead of someone like Atkinson, because I like when, assistant coaches who have been proving it for a long time get a chance instead of these other recycled head coaches. They get fired a million times. That's not so much the case with Kenny Atkinson, but a guy like Doc Rivers, for example, or Mike D'Antoni, those guys have been fired a million times for a reason. Get someone new, get someone fresh, like one of these assistant coaches. So if that's the case for the Cavs and they do end up getting one of those guys, I just personally like that for the direction of the organization, but I don't think that's positive in getting Donovan Mitchell to stay there. Anyways, that's really all I got for your weekly Donovan Mitchell to Miami Heat update. Would you give up the whole farm for him? I think I would, outside of Jimmy and Bam. I'm not going to lie to you. That's why, when Mitchell does, after the NBA Finals, when those contract talks are about to start with Mitchell, if he doesn't sign the extension right away, it's showtime. Because the Cavs are going to say, oh, we're allowed to talk to you. Boom. Here's a max extension. No discussions asked, no negotiation. Here is the most money possible. Sign it right now. And if he doesn't, that means the boy is gone. And to the same extent, if I'm the Miami Heat and, we all see that, I don't, fool around if I'm Pat Riley and say, oh, maybe Tyler in 2 first, maybe. No, I beat every other offer to the punch. I give him Tyler, I give him Jaime, I give him Jovic, I give him all the picks that we can, and that's how you start. Don't play around like they may or may not have did with Damian Lillard. We don't know because all the reports conflicted, but don't play around. Give up your assets and get a guy like Donovan Mitchell, because in my opinion, he's absolutely worth it. Anyways, that's all I got to say for this video. Make sure to like so the algorithm can push it out to all these other people, and subscribe because we're grinding to hit 5K before the start of next season. And I have a couple interesting series coming out. As I was saying, the Big Man series I think is dropping tomorrow, and I'll be sprinkling in these draft videos throughout among some other stuff. So subscribe so you don't miss it. Hit the bell if you want, and I'll see y'all next time. Peace out.
Look, pull up in the city tryna get that dead face. Do it on my own, I don't need no dead weight. Had to kill him off, yeah, I need a head space. You know this homegrown bitch don't offend me.